The 90s in the WWF were nuts. The ending of Hulkamania sparked a mini panic and impacted business. You go back and watch it today though, and man, there is some tremendous stuff in there. Therefore, let us shine a spotlight on the best world title reigns. And this isn't just about the matches themselves either. I mean, how did they win it? How did they lose it? How did they hold the thing? We need to get into the proper home run swings here. So I am Simon Miller. Let's go. Number 10, Ric Flair from January 1992 to April 1992. Out of his touted 16 world title reigns, only 2 happened under the WWF banner. The longest of these was his first, when the Nature Boy held it for 77 days. And while that doesn't sound that long, I tell you, Flair packed it in. The way he won it stands out huge here, because after jumping ship from WCW, Rick won the flipping 1992 Royal Rumble. Even today, it's still often called the best Rumble in history, even more so because Flair walked out at number 3. Talk about establishing somebody as a major player. Vince McMahon then scrapped the planned Flair vs. Hogan match at WrestleMania 8, but in many ways, time has been kind to this decision. It meant Rick faced the Macho Man Randy Savage, and this was truly great. Should have been the main event, especially with the story leading up to it, because Flair had claimed he was having an affair with Miss Elizabeth. He even had doctored pictures. It was Savage who got his revenge and took the championship from Flair, but all of this was so well done. Outdid what was actually happening at the top of the card too, so yeah. In 2024, this is well worth your time. I do believe we call it top stuff. Number 9, Yokozuna from June 1993 to March 1994. It was at the King of the Ring 1993 when Zunes won the WWF title back from Hulk Hogan, who had ridiculously won it from nowhere at the end of WrestleMania 9. We tried to revive Hulkamania. Shock horror, it didn't work. Yoko was just the ultimate monster at this point though, so he had to get it back, which he did. He then held it for a whopping 280 days, which was the third longest reign of the decade, and he made every second count. His main rival, of course, was Lex Luger, who he tried to make the new Hogan, and that didn't work either. Lex did get a win over Yokozuna at SummerSlam, but you know the deal. It was a count out, and that was the end of that. Fans lost any faith they may have had left. During this run too, Zunes also wrecked the Undertaker of all people at the Royal Rumble, and seriously, you gotta look that up. I know you get that daft ascending upwards magic afterwards, but ignore that. Focus on the champion, he felt unstoppable. It was at Mania 10 where he became unglued, but look at this. He had to have 2 matches during that night, and after he had defeated Luger in the first one, Bret Hart found him in the main event, and sure, he won. This is another reason this title run was so good, however. The WWF did everything right, and even today the big man is underrated. He moved like crazy for a dude that size. It still wasn't as perfect as it should have been due to wrestling politics. That kind of makes it better too. Fans still saw Yoko as the beast he was. What an absolute legend. Number 8, The Undertaker from March 1997 to August 1997. The Undertaker never needed to be the world champion. We've spoken about this before. The gimmick was so strong he could exist almost within his own universe. This was his second reign with the WWF Championship though, and no, it didn't start great. The match with Psycho Sid at Mania 13 didn't reach the heights you'd want from a main event, but hey, we had a job to do. Cause right after this, the Dead Man had a banger with Mankind at Revenge of the Taker, and another one against Stone Cold Steve Austin at Cold Day in Hell. Everybody forgets that one. The Rattlesnake was on his way, but here he was basically fodder. The Canadian Stampede fight with Vader was also a lot of fun, but it's how he lost his belt where the Undertaker's run soars, as weird as that sounds. It came, of course, at SummerSlam 1997. Man, this is one of the best show closers ever. As usual, Mark Calloway understood the assignment and was basically used to set up the rest of the year in terms of feuds. For those that don't know, he was facing Bret Hart, who was now a USA bad guy, and Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. As Shawn and Bret couldn't get on, eventually Hart spat at Michaels, who went to brain him with a chair. The Hitman then ducked and HBK whammed Taker instead. Whoops. Bret didn't even bother to hit another move and just pinned the Phenom to become a 5-time WWF champion. And of course, Taker was pissed. It led to the first ever Hell in a Cell match in October, and of course took us to that year's Survivor Series. If you don't know what happened there, I envy you. So it was just great wrestling, and it needed to be The Undertaker in this role for many reasons. It gave him real fuel to add to his fire. This truly was one of the best times in history. The whole thing just flowed. Number 7, The Ultimate Warrior from April 1990 to January 1991. So this is an interesting choice. We all know the deal. The Ultimate Warrior's debut run with the title wasn't all that good in terms of what came before it. The WWF hoped he was going to do Hulk Hogan numbers business-wise, they were wrong. The fans still loved this guy though, and management understood the Warrior's strengths. Therefore, his first program after Mania 6 was with Rick Rude, and that guy, he knew the deal. He wanted to make it work and he did. Rude was next level. That lasted from SummerSlam through to the Survivor Series, and while there wasn't anything huge to shout about outside of this, it's not like the WWF died. If nothing else, it was a worthy experiment. The loss to Sergeant Slaughter at the Rumble was disappointing. That's only because of what we were doing with Sarge. The Iraqi sympathizer gimmick was awful. Just go back and look at the crowd's faces when the Ultimate One enters during this time, though. They still lost their minds, and that's the point, my friends. This most definitely worked. It just did so in a really weird way. Know of any other world title reigns from the 90s that we need to talk about more? Please let me know in the comments below before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Number 6, Diesel from November 1994 to November 1995. Diesel squashed Bob Backlund at a Madison Square Garden house show to win the WWF title, and this was not a mistake. Big Daddy Cool was exactly that, and people loved him. He deserved to be moved into the spot. I doubt anybody thought he would hold it for a year, but Vince McMahon was super into this guy, which is why it was bizarre we stripped him of everything that made him a badass. It was that classic search of we need a new Hulk Hogan, which was not Kevin Nash at all. He should have just wrecked people and then shrugged his shoulders. Even with that though, Diesel faced everybody. Sid, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, the British Bulldog, and regrettably King Mabel. I mean, that SummerSlam 1995 match was so bad, people got fired, but still, Nash would fight them all. The scraps with HBK and the Hitman stand out a mile and deserve your time. And don't forget that during this period, he also became a tag team champion alongside Shawn Michaels. The man was mega pushed. The argument against all this is the fact business did go down, but it kind of feels like that was down to other factors. Diesel still got a ton done during his 12-month reign, and it has to count for something. If we had just let him be the same dude he was before this victory too, sheesh. The entire story would have been night and day. Number 5, Shawn Michaels from March 1996 to November 1996. So we all know how he won it, WrestleMania 12 and the Iron Man match. It does cause all the chatter today because of course we get no falls for the 60-minute time period. I think that's half genius and half silly. I admire the guts, but if the fans are expecting multiple pins and submissions, just give it to them. It still saw Shawn Michaels win his first WWF title, which we pushed super hard, and even sold it as the boyhood dream coming true. I get it. The first feud was with Diesel, which was personal given they were former friends, before he moved on to Vader. Now, they actually had a great match at SummerSlam, which then did go bad. Michaels felt like Vader smacked him around too much, so that was that. We were done, moving on. The highlight is Shawn's Mind Games pay-per-view match with Mankind because it just showed us so much. Not only could the Heartbreak Kid switch styles, but it underlined how good Mick Foley was. That table bump too, we would be talking about it for years. Sid Justice toppled him at the Survivor Series, which was the right move as fans had decided they loved Sid. So really this is all about match quality. No big surprise, Michaels never missed, and it was the same here. Number 4, The Rock from Survivor Series 1998 to January 1999. How mad is that? 1 month. That was all the first ever WWF title reign lasted for The Rock, which is even more crazy because the heel turn at the 1998 Survivor Series to start all of this was all time. You can't beat it. It also meant the People's Champ had joined the corporation, which crushed all of our hearts. But who did he face in the final of the Deadly Game tournament? It was Mankind, and it was this guy who was going to bother Rocky until we got knee-deep in with Steve Austin. Because it was the Attitude Era, we also zoomed through these matches with the Rattlesnake, X-Pac, and Mankind himself, which is kind of where it all went bad. For The Rock anyway, because we all remember this night. The most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment did take on Foley when Austin came out to one of the biggest pops of all time, smashed the Great One in the head with a chair, and dragged Mick's body on top for the 1, 2, 3. No one cared that Mankind won that way either. We were just so happy. This is why it's so high up in this list though. From how he won it to how he lost it, The Rock's run was just Entertainment 101. Shouldn't be that big of a surprise, that was his shtick. So yeah, this clocks in at only 44 days, but it meant something, damn it. Time isn't everything. Number 3, Shawn Michaels from November 1997 to March 1998. Well, this started at the 1997 Survivor Series. Talk about controversy. Again, if you don't know, keep it that way. It's better for you. It does mean that we do forget in the world of wrestling, Shawn Michaels had tapped out Bret Hart with the sharpshooter, so now he was the WWF champion. It also triggered full-on HBK Degeneration X mode, which is certainly pushing the boat out, but he did have matches with Owen Hart and Ken Shamrock. So that was fun. That felt fresh and new. The 1998 Royal Rumble also housed Shawn versus The Undertaker in a casket match, and those two never missed. The problem was, this was the night where Michaels landed on the coffin and basically broke his back. It was awful. Somehow the Heartbreak Kid held it all together to have a match with Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14 to pass the torch, so there are some really important fights in here. It also just felt like a whirlwind which kept the product interesting, and let's not forget the Attitude Era was launched soon after this. You need a good base for that, so Shawn smashed it, even if he was the most difficult man ever. Number 2, Bret Hart from March 1994 to November 1994. Do you need a good direction for your company and want to tell people that wrestling is great? Shock horror, just go and find a good wrestler and tell them to wrestle. That's what Bret Hart did here. The Hitman won his second WWF title from Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10, and he would hold the Winged Eagle belt for 248 days. Love that design. My all-time favorite. From here, he would just put on a clinic when it came to great matches and constantly made you believe he was going to lose. That's the secret sauce too. Keeps you on your seat. His opponents ranged all over the place too, as he took on Diesel the 1-2-3 Kid, and of course had some classics with his brother Owen. The SummerSlam 1994 match especially is just incredible, and if somebody had decided that the youngest Hart was the guy to be the next champion, yeah, I get it, no issues here. Instead, Diesel got so hot Vince McMahon felt like that was the shift, but he didn't want a babyface to beat a babyface. Therefore, Bob Backlund did shock the world at the Survivor Series in an overbooked mess of a match, but you know what? Bret makes it work. Of course he did. There is just something special about a workhorse champion leading the company forward, and it still feels this way today. Some people are really mean about this run, but I tell you, my friends, they shouldn't be. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin from March 1998 to June 1998. It is not actually that crazy that Steve Austin's first WWF title run only lasted 3 months, because the promotion loved doing this. The Rattlesnake was so good at chasing the belt and winning it back, no one ever cared. Of course, this also heralded in a new era for the company as Steve became the man. And go and watch his first events against the new Dude Love. It sounded dumb, but Austin was about to show everybody what the new main event style was going to be, and as Mick Foley was the best brawler ever, bam, it ruled. There was also a show in the UK where Stone Cold faced Triple H in an underrated war, when sure, after 91 days, he lost the title to Kane at the King of the Ring in that first blood match. The thing is, there was way more important things here than matches and numbers. This reign just told the audience who the man was and everybody agreed, so it was fine. Listen to the reactions each and every time. Steve was the guy, no questions asked. It also moved the WWF into a position that would fuel it for years and eventually ended the Monday Night Wars. It's all off the back of this moment. So if history is important, which it is, you cannot overlook this. It changed the world forever, and thank goodness it did. The amount of people that became fans because of it, there may never be anything else like it again.